I said, who knows? I could be a CIA agent, just laying low. Well, what I didn't know was the second man on that interview who was interviewing me, Joe Goldberg, was a resigned CIA action operative. He and I started talking, and he had said that if I wanted to, he would review Spy Girls.
Joanna, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Mark. There's a lot of work I know that goes behind producing these, so I really appreciate it.
I have your book here with me, Spy Girls. Thank you for sending me a copy. I realized actually as I was thinking about this, I think I've had books come from more places in the world than I've been able to travel. And yours is another one. I've always wanted to go to BC. I think I was born to go in BC because I like to run distances and stuff in the mountains. But here in Ottawa, there's almost no mountains. I mean, you can kind of go to like hills, ski hills, but not really mountains. So I'm envious of your end of the world.
Well, we don't know how to handle snow when we do get it.
Okay,
Okay.
fair. So let's get into the pitch. Pitch me your book, Spy Girls.
Okay, Spy Girls. So, my heroine, Jade Thyme, she's a lawyer, and after her sister's partner has been kidnapped, she is coerced into finding an elusive double agent. She navigates political agendas and she escapes sticky bombs while trying to outplay a psychotic Russian assassin as she tries to find this double agent. That's it. I made it short.
Yeah, that is short and sweet, but it does summarize
Yeah.
very well what happens. So thank you.
Well, I kept thinking about some of these pitch fast dating, not fast dating sites, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean? When you have 10 minutes, you need to pitch to an edit, like an
Yeah.
agent. So it's like, okay, do this in one sentence.
Very good. So where did the story idea come from?
Oh, wow. Actually, it, you had another guest on. I was listening, and we both had similar story ideas. It was, I wrote her name down here. Is it Ox
Yeah.
Devere?
The Devil's Eye.
Um,
Yeah.
The Devil's Eye. And I wrote this in, so I published it in 2024. You know how long it takes to write a book. I started it in 2022. So it had, at that time, ugh, I don't even I want to mention this man's name, Jeffrey Epstein,
Mhm.
the human trafficking that was in the news. And then combined with, we had criminal matter in British Columbia involving a judge being charged with, I can't remember all the charges, but basically, what I can vaguely remember is he was going down to the downtown east side and um, involved with women, okay, and being abusive. And I think as writers, we also try to, in our fictional world, try to bring about justice. And so then that's where those two ideas meshed. Uh, we had, spy events happening in Canada where different, as soon as I started to dig, I found out about how there was a CSIS agent who was selling secrets. And I'm just, so it's almost like a serendipity. All these ideas kind of came together and they meshed into spies.
How long did it take from these ideas into the novel before you started putting like pen to paper? Was it like months of thinking and trying to put it together in your mind before you put it onto paper?
Well, kind of. You have dogs and I have dogs. So every morning when I'd be walking those dogs, right, I'd be thinking about this story. And at the time when I started writing it, yeah, I'd say at least a year of the ideas coming together. And I wasn't a plotter when I wrote Spy Girls. I have since become. a bit of a plotter, and it was just writing the story and fleshing it out. And I even had a third storyline in there, which my editor said, this is going nowhere. So either you work on this storyline or we got to get rid of it. Right. So yeah, I'd say a year before and during the writing process, I started to refine the storyline.
Did you pants this book? Did you just get down and just start writing the book rather than having all the notes and the characters kind of pre-built?
I had notes, but I did not plot it. I was a pantser.
Okay.
Was.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
have since learned, which from listening to previous episodes, I'm not the only pantser who has learned, okay, you got to save some time.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And why in Canada for the plot? I know a lot of, and I've been guilty of this myself, as I set it in the U.S. a story because I know most market is U.S. for purchasing books, so I try and build it there. But you chose Canada, and I'm just curious as to why.
It's because of my heroine. I worked in the prosecutor's office for 13 years, and then I worked in the office of the police complaint commissioner for another 10. And you're always told, write what you know. So I wasn't going to try to learn the American justice system. Like I know what it's like to work in a prosecutor's office. I have a connection in the prosecutor's office, so she can, because laws change, she read what I had written and made changes saying, oh, the law has changed. It's not this section number, or, you know, this is our new process. We don't refer to judges now as his honor or his worship anymore, right? So the last thing I think a writer wants is someone to pick up their book and say, she's got her facts wrong.
Yeah.
So that's why I kept it in Canada. I kept it in with the Canadian criminal justice system, just because I thought I didn't want a mistake. Of trying to figure out the American justice system. So that's why I kept it in Canada. Yeah.
And how true to life was the setting throughout the book that they're going through and exploring, like the streets, the boats?
So Victoria, I lived there for 22 years, and that setting is so legitimate because how Jade walks to work in the morning, that is how I walk to work.
Wow.
Going over that bridge, going down the Galloping Goose, all of that was legitimate. And I'm serious, that Galloping Goose, you walk on one way because you've got bikes zipping past, right? And when you came home, you walked on another side because you've got bikes zipping past, right? So, and the Chinatown in Victoria is so cool, and Fantan Alley, all of that is legitimate. And yeah, that's all very true, very true. Because that, like I said, that was my neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
The boat scene, I remember I was kind of doing like latitude and longitude, and I thought, okay, they went out here, and looking at those locations,
Okay.
what would be the latitude and the longitude,
Yeah.
right? Just to make, again, thinking about wanting it to be accurate, right? So when they go out into the ocean area, that there's a bit of fiction. Okay. Yeah.
And what about the motorcycle gang? Is that because that's very unique to your story? They're used as like a security force. They're the motorcycles in general. You don't usually see that, or don't read that
Yeah.
a lot. So that was very unique and fun. Where did that come from?
Because I like bikes.
Okay.
I own a scooter. I don't own a motorcycle. And during, like, I illustrate motorcycles. I've done commissions, and I enjoy illustrating motorbikes. In a few weeks, I'm going to actually illustrate a boat. And what I mean by illustrate is it's marker paper, and I use what's called Copic art markers. And that's how I do the illustrations. Like the illustrations in the front of Spy Girls. That's one of my illustrations,
Okay.
right? And
Talking
it
about,
was,
I'll just hold that up for viewers who are actually watching this. This is the one here. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I remember, like, again, I think it was T.D. Severin who I was listening to him, where he was saying how he had written his book about 30 years ago in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I had a bit of a similar path where I stopped writing and I was creating these illustrations. So when I came back to writing and I was thinking about Jade and I was thinking about these characters, and I remember looking up once at one of my illustrations and I thought, she rides a motorcycle, because there are a lot of women out there who ride bikes who aren't necessarily in a gang. And I thought, okay, let's take this up a notch, right? So that's where that came
Okay,
from.
that was fun.
Yeah.
And you mentioned like the facts and getting the facts right, and you also brought in CSIS and the RCMP, which is Canadian, but you brought in the CIA or ex-CIA. Why? Where did that come from to bring in a U.S. spy agency?
Well, what was fun with that is, again, I think of writing and serendipity because I was interviewed, while I was writing Spy Girls, and there were two men on the interview, and I had made, it was this embarrassing joke because the one interviewer didn't know exactly where I was from. He knew BC, but he didn't know, okay, Vancouver Island. And I was joke. Oh, God, don't try to joke. Oh, I thought I was being funny. And I said, yes, I live on Vancouver Island, just kind of laying low. I said, who knows? I could be a CIA agent, just laying low. Well, what I didn't know was the second man on that interview who was interviewing me, Joe Goldberg, was a resigned CIA action not officer, operative. He and I started talking, and he had said that if I wanted to, he would review Spy Girls specifically for when I mentioned about any sort of CIA operations,
Oh,
right?
cool.
So, yeah. So after I kind of like took my, foot out of my mouth, my comment, right? I was very happy. And he's an author too, Joe Goldberg. And, you know, yeah, I remember because I had originally written that the character, Jan Hoffman, that he had retired, right, from the CIA. And I remember Joe saying to me, no, we don't retire, we resign. And I went, okay, noted, right? So, yeah,
Oh, that's very cool.
yeah.
So we're gonna jump to a little bit, talk a little bit about characters, and one of the things that struck me in this novel is that you chose to go from third person to first person, with Jade, who's your main character, and third person with pretty much anybody else. Why that choice? I had never seen that, and I just recently did an interview which hasn't come out yet with Steve Stratton, who also did that, and it was the first time, and he shared his inspiration. But I'm curious to know why you chose to switch that point of view, because it's not something you see very much.
Yeah, that was a risk. Um, and so your listeners know I do it in parts. Okay. So when I do the big switch into first person with my heroine, it's a different part of the book. So you open the book and it's part one, and that's where it's in third person, right? And what I love doing as a writer is I almost like when the reader is reading, I want to almost give them information ahead of time of the heroine. So it's whether it's it's not even foreshadowing, but when they get to the heroine, and she's starting to investigate and get pulled into the scenario, I want them to be thinking, oh God, when are the paths going to cross? Right? Because you kind of know what the bad guy, what his plans are. And I just want the reader to, when they get into Jade's head, to be wondering, okay, when are they going to collide? You know, when is the bad guy's motives and the heroine's motives going to collide? Okay. And that's why I did that. And it was fun for me, and I hope the reader found it fun. You know, it's definitely a little different.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't completely like there was a little bit of back and forth, but it wasn't as jarring as happening like every chapter or something, which was nice.
Yeah.
I liked it. I didn't find it, I guess because I just read Steve Stratton, who it did jar me with his book, but now that I kind of got a feel for it, and then I went to yours, I was like, oh, okay, this is fine.
Yeah. And I think as long as you're fair with the reader, you know, because I thought, okay, I don't want them to be thinking, okay, where are we now? Who am I now? Who am I reading? Whose head I'm in? So that's why in the beginning there is part one, and it's third person, and it's this one character's point of view. And then we have part two, and then womb. The most of it then is in the heroine's point of view. But I definitely separate it so the reader knows, okay, we're in someone else's head right now. Yeah.
Was that pre-planned? Did you wanted to do that to set
Yeah.
up the character?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's one reader said to me, she summarized it perfectly. She said, reading Spy Girls is like watching a snowball just get bigger and bigger and
Yeah,
bigger and bigger, right? And I thought, yeah, that's
yeah.
it, right? Yeah.
And with Jade, as the story continues, and I'll try not to give any spoilers, and there are moments where big things happen to her, so things are revealed, probably about like the three-quarter of the mark is kind of where I'm referring to from the book. And instead of because there's essentially there's two ways you can go about it. You can spend a lot of time in the character's head, which happens a lot, where writers will say, oh, I can't believe this, or this is happening to me, or what do I do now? Or there's a lot of that. And there's action, where the character's reactions and actions kind of help you understand how they're processing their trauma. And you went with that route. You went the action route. You spent, to me anyway, you spent less time. She wasn't in her head so much, worried about herself or everything. She was just go, go, go. It was just constantly action, which I also don't see a whole lot, but I liked it. Do you feel like that's your writing, or was that a choice to just spend less time in her head and show that, oh, there's a moment where she's like, teach me, where she wants the self-defense, like, no, teach it now, I need it now. And that's like you showing that there's this trauma that she needs to process, but it was through action, and it was alive and fun, which was different than her in her brain saying, or her to the reader in her mind saying, this is terrible, how do I survive this kind of thing.
Yeah, I wanted the urgency. I think that's the biggest thing. I wanted the urgency, and like you said, teach me now, because there's a lot at stake for her. And I also like writing action scenes. It's there's a scene in the beginning involving a judge, and there's a young, like you learn about a young female, and that scene was much harder to write than any of the action scenes. Like there's an action scene on a boat involving Jade where she's just about
Yeah.
harmed. And that scene was easier to write than anything involving the judge.
Okay.
And yeah, and I remember the fights, like there's without giving anything away, a fight scene near the end involving Jade. And that was, I don't want to say fun to write because it gets a bit brutal. But it's basically, you're sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, if like literally, I remember thinking, if I'm fighting for my life, what would I do? Right. So,
Yeah. Was that the hardest moment to write, the parts with the judge for you?
Yes, yes. And it was, again, it was Ox DeVere who you interviewed.
Octavere, yeah. I think that's how you say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, where she had said with some of the scenes she had written, she needed, I've got to quote her because it was perfect, a brain bath, and I thought, I get it. Like that, you ask good questions, and it's been fun listening to your podcast
Thank
because,
you.
I'm like, uh-huh, uh-huh. Yeah.
Was there research you had to do for the villain, like for how you portrayed the justice and what he had done? Like you mentioned Epstein. Was there any research behind that and things that had happened that kind of came together to make that scene?
I don't believe I did research for that, given what we would have seen on the news. And yeah, and given some of what I've been exposed to when I worked for Crown Counsel, it's almost like, I hate to say this, but it's almost like I'm going to need a brain bath, like like God said, almost like letting your mind going to the worst possible areas of human behavior. Okay. And I don't think there is anything a writer can imagine that hasn't happened in real life.
Yeah.
Okay. So I wouldn't say that there was research. I could not research that man, right? I drew upon more of what I've been exposed to when I worked at Crown
Okay.
Counsel. But having said that, now when I think about it, it was more the judge and looking up articles and reading articles about what this judge had done.
Okay.
Okay, so there was some research, tiny bit of
Okay.
research. Yeah,
Did
yeah,
that judge also have an accomplice like you had? Was that part of that story, or that was you made that up with the? I mean, I don't
I
no
made that
spoilers,
up.
but yeah, okay, you made that part up. Okay,
Yeah,
listeners
yeah,
will have
no,
to
I made that up.
read the book to know what I'm talking about there. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you ever consider writing when you started that book, writing his point of view at all, like the justice's point of view, like a moment in time where to almost set up a very dark moment, or you didn't want to?
Oh God, not at that time. No, no. But it's weird, Mark, because I have just written a short story for an anthology, a call out for an anthology. And there's a very bad character in that book. And he, not in that book, in that story. And how he treats people is just so despicable. And I drew upon, let's just say, some politicians in our current world. It was weird to go down there, and I wonder now if now the reason why I went that route is because the motivation is different. Okay, with Spy Girls, it's more about my heroine, you know, getting justice, whereas in this other short story I had just written, it was trying to show what this despicable character in this short story was doing, right? So I guess yeah, my motives were different. Did I answer your
Yeah,
question? But
yeah, yeah. So you probably needed a brain bath after that one as well, then.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Because writing villains can be gross like that. Absolutely, trying to
yeah,
justify their dirty deeds.
yeah, yeah.
A couple more questions for you. Moving to kind of a writer-focused couple of questions to finish this interview off with. What advice would you give someone who just published their first or second book?
Keep writing. Keep writing. Yeah, there's a few things I'd say to someone who's just published. It would be start your next one. Like, so I remember after I first published the first book, The Unraveling, when I was coming near the end, I had an idea already for the second one, but I told myself, give yourself a month's break. And actually, that's pretty much what I do. And usually by the end of the month, I'm just like, I'm like, okay, I'm ready, right? I want to do this. So just give yourself a month's break or give yourself a little bit of a break, but we're thinking about the next book. Okay, definitely. Writing notes or, just keep writing, keep writing. And don't look at stats. That's the other big thing I've found is don't look at stats with regards to if you're going traditional, how many traditional publishers pick up new authors. Don't the stats will make you not want to write. I do not look at writing stats.
That's fair.
Yeah. And I had one more, which I can't remember right now. But yeah, keep writing. Definitely keep writing. And
Okay.
pick whatever path you want. If you self-publish and then decide you want to try traditional publishing, that's okay. Like you don't have to stay on the same path,
Yeah.
just yeah,
Yeah. There's a lot of hybrid now they're kind of moving back and forth between the two. That has made it
yeah,
acceptable in this day and age. Yeah.
yeah.
And where can readers find more about your books and purchase your book or find more about you?
Well, more about me would be at joannavandervlugt.com. That's my website. And the easiest way is just going on Amazon. That's the easiest way, whether you're an American listener or a Canadian listener. If you go on Amazon, you will see my book. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. I really appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun. If you don't mind sticking around for the after show, we're changing it up a little bit. So we're going to be doing a rapid fire round for the after show just to change it up and have a little bit of fun. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mark. Like I say, I know the work involved behind the scenes.
Thank you.